Hey, welcome back to the Unbelievable Podcast. I am BJ Reidell, back here with my guy, Drew Mahowald. And today, well, we've got all kinds of stuff happening in Minnesota. And that's kind of how the NFL offseason works. You go from making up stuff for content to coming into a flurry of it where there's really not enough hours, minutes, time in general to go over all of it in depth. So, with the flurries of free agency and kind of with the subsequent rumors and whatnot, we're just kind of going to cover it on the fly, discuss what's happened so far, situation the Vikings have put themselves in, and what kind of mode they're moving into. Some of these moves in the last couple of days suggest rebuild. Some of them kind of suggest reload. There's also some rumors floating with Danielle Hunter that could really blow things up in one direction or another. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. And so that's our job here today, is to give you more information in a fun way about those moving chess pieces that are happening as we speak. We're recording this on Monday, May 15th at about 3:45 Central Time, meaning that the free agent tampering period opened about 4 hours, give or take, ago. So if something happens, we'll talk about that. But until then, we'll kind of get back to a lot of the moves that have been happening over the last couple of weeks here, and some of the moves that may be happening in the next few days, hours, etc. So that's the game plan for today's show. We'll see where it heads, and we'll see how long this thing lasts. So let's jump right into it. So since the last time that we spoke, it's been about 2 weeks because I was coming home from Arizona. A lot has happened just transactionally. The release of Kyle Rudolph. He's officially no longer a member of the Minnesota Vikings. Some of these things we thought would happen and knew were going to happen, like that. A little more, others are a little more shocking. Riley Reiff officially released, freeing up nearly $12 million in cap space. You've also got the restructures of the punter, which doesn't sound like much, but when you cut Dan Bailey, then you're doing something with the punter. It ends up, the difference in salary ends up being about $4 million between those two guys alone. And then on
top of that, I mean, that could be significant given where the Vikings have been cap wise. So
that's your draft class almost.
Getting Colquitt down, and it seemed like he was it was a team friendly type of situation where he kind of wanted to be in Minnesota, which is kind of interesting from a punter perspective, given how special teamers at specialists have worked out in Minnesota over the years, that he wanted to be there. But then the big one too is Anthony Barr. That was, I believe, today actually was the official terms on that. I know they were working towards it for a few days and finally got to it where essentially the final 2 years, so 2022 and 2023 of his deal are voided. So basically he's on a 1-year deal for 2021 now and can hit free agency when it seems like there will be a big spike in the salary cap. And so I think a lot of guys are looking for, maybe some mid to upper tier free agents are looking for a 1-year deal to get playing time this year, get a spot, and then really go back at free agency next year. So I think Barr was able to do that. So he's kind of giving up a little bit of some money, but with the expectation for him anyway that he's going to get paid again next year.
Yeah, that's super interesting because there was a anonymous source quote floating around. I mean, give or take, take what you want with anonymous sources, but there was a wide receiver in free agency that was specifically hunting for that 1-year deal. And Drew's right. I mean, right now there's less, we went over this, basically the last time we talked, that salary cap has never gone down before, with exception to when the NFL went on strike. That was the only time it's ever gone down before. It went down this year. That changes everything dramatically. And it'll probably go back up next year as soon as all the butts are in the seats again.
Well, now you get that. Plus, I think there was the TV deal, a new extension there. I think there were some details floating around.
Potentially the 17th game as well down the road.
Yep. So some massive extra money coming in here. The outlook is very lucrative for the NFL in the next 12 to 18 months.
So it makes, initially you look at Barr taking years off of his deal and you're like, what's going on here? Does this guy not want to be here? Especially with the rumors floating around about Danielle Hunter as well. But realistically, this is just the best financial decision for Anthony Barr. He believes he's going to play 16 games at a high level this next season. He believes he's going to get a bigger payday somewhere, whether that's in Minnesota or somewhere else. That's a decision that can be made next year now, which is good. So really, overall, I think everyone wins here. That's a good topic to kind of start this whole thing off, because that is a weird one. How often do you see a guy restructure to take ultimately less money guaranteed, so less security, as opposed to the opportunity to potentially push your earnings higher with significantly less. Like, for example, if Anthony Barr, God forbid, knock on wood, whatever your thing is, tears another ligament of some kind,
Yeah.
what happens next free agency? That's scary.
Yeah, it is scary, and I think it's nice as a Vikings fan that Barr's been great to watch, been awesome to root for, been a great player for this team and for Mike Zimmer's defense. But it's nice to, while he'll be probably gone next year, or at least the likelihood is that he's going to be looking elsewhere. It's nice that he will clearly have some sort of extra motivation for 2021.
Yeah.
On top of already he missed most of last year with the injury, and now he's got kind of forcing himself into a contract year. So he's definitely going to be have that extra chip on his shoulder, which is going to be nice to have, I think, and a little bit something more to prove, maybe, because for as much as we want to think that the money doesn't matter to these guys, it certainly does. Like, these guys want to get paid, and it's a reputation thing as much as it is a financial security thing. These guys want the most money that they can get, and so the best way obviously to do that is to play well, and Barr has set himself up for essentially he's betting on himself in 2021 to make that splash. And so that's kudos to him for kind of having that attitude. I love that for any player, Viking or not. So good and a good move there for the Vikings too. They free up, I think, like $3 million or just shy of $3 million cap space this year. So kind of inch by inch they're doing that, with Reef and Rudolph and the specialists, what they did there. So they have created, I think it's like 12 something million here as of right now with the tampering period open, that they have the ability to go after some significant names out there that I guess we really didn't foresee the Vikings being in play for a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, we could definitely go over some of those names as well after we cover our own own team here. But Shaquille Griffin's in that class. I mean, that name wasn't even on my radar. Could be fun.
There's
Anyways,
a lot of that. Yeah, a lot of the rumors. You see like your verified accounts and then your unverified accounts. Saying different things, and so you don't really know what to believe. But
that's the fun of this tampering period.
That's March in the NFL, baby.
All right, so let's keep moving here with money talks. Since I like where you were going there with Anthony Barr about giving himself the greatest opportunity to make the greatest amount of money. Players always talk about, and I'm going to rip some TV or movie off here with this quote. I can't remember where it's from, but that the money doesn't actually matter. It's about keeping score, right? And I think this is a matter that pertains specifically to Danielle Hunter. We could gloss over the other guys in another point in time, but I think Danielle Hunter is really the focus of conversation here. Whether he's not even this doesn't even concern free agency, to be honest with you. It concerns what the Vikings might do in free agency, but Danielle Hunter is not nor a free agent to be or a free agent. So, but there are rumors circulating around that he's not happy with his contract specifically. I've seen people say that he doesn't like being in Minnesota, or he doesn't like, Andre Patterson or Mike Zimmer or something like that. I'm not going to buy into that. Those rumors are around. You can find them if you search it on Twitter, but I'm not going to buy into that just yet. I'm going to go off of what we kind of know from Chad Graff specifically, which is an official report that's in a newspaper somewhere that I can definitely point to if someone tells me I'm wrong. Okay, so Danielle Hunter is apparently unhappy with his contract, and I think this is a matter of just he's getting paid a lot of money. He also signed his deal too early, which we called him out for. That's on him.
I think we were, we don't want to be critical of how superstar athletes handle their money and how agent. Because we're far from the experts in that realm. But it was interesting that he signed that deal, and we knew right away like this was going to be a bargain because he was clearly showing superstar potential already. He was a superstar at that point, but it was just it had to do with his recognition in the league and something that would build upon itself. And you give another year and you probably get close to 20 mil a year with that deal, but settles for 14 mil a year, and soon enough he even skips out on a year because of not skips out. He has to sit out a year because of an injury, and he still sees himself as having the leverage to hold out potentially or ask for more money, redo his deal, whatever the case may be. Where given how pass rushers are getting paid around him, he should be getting over $20 million a season based on that. But I mean, we'll see how it plays out. If it gets to the point where he does request a trade, there will be some serious, assets to be sent back to Minnesota.
So like this is a defining moment here, right? Like I just said, he's not a free agent and he's under contract. So like, why are we talking about him when we're talking about free agency? It's really simple. It's if he requests that trade in the same way to a much lesser extent to what happened with Russell Wilson in Seattle, where all of a sudden teams are calling about Russell Wilson. That changes the direction of your franchise. Danielle Hunter in Minnesota is not even close to Russell Wilson is to Seattle, but it's their prize possession, right? It's the blue chip of blue chips that the Vikings own right now. And I shouldn't say own, but you know what I'm saying. Danielle Hunter is the guy that the Vikings have. He's the person you build around, essentially. He's at a prime position, one of the best in the league at his position. He's a perfect scheme fit. He's developed internally. He's got all the qualities of a great pass rusher, and with the exception to the injury last year, he's almost always playing at an extremely high level and with a high motor. So he's only getting better. He represents all of these things that you want in a franchise, and he's probably playing the second most valuable position on the field, other than quarterback. I mean, you could argue cornerback as well here, but for the sake of argument, we'll say the second most important position. If the Vikings trade this guy, your free agency is different. Everything you do for the next 3 months is much different. If you trade him, you're entering full rebuild. There's no way around it. You can't. You're lying to your fans if you're saying that you're not trying to rebuild if you trade Danielle Hunter, whether he asks for it or not.
Right, and especially after with the whole Diggs thing last year, like the Vikings still tried to kind of show the fans and show themselves, I think even talk themselves into not a full rebuild.
Right.
And that's a mistake they made last year, clearly, with the Ngakoue deal, things like that. When your star player wants out, and I'm not saying Hunter wants out necessarily, but he wants more money. And if the Vikings are not able to or are not willing to pay him what he wants, there's going to be, you have to trade him at that point. You got to get something for him. You can't let the guy, hold out and sit there and not contribute anything to your football team if you have the option not to. So, but I think the Vikings could really get a big payout back if they end up going that route. I don't know. There's still a lot to work out in the Vikings. Now, if they have the cap space, it's not like they can't really work out something to pay him probably that 20-something mil a year. Depends just really how much he's going to ask for. But it's, I have no qualms with Hunter asking for more, given how much some of his colleagues that are, I would say, kind of lower on the totem pole in terms of pass rushers are getting right now. But the other concern that I would have if I'm, his agent or even himself is he had to sit out a whole season because of a neck injury. And, with neck injuries, those are, there's not a clear cut answer as to how that player comes back. So that piece of leverage, I think you lose a little bit there with that injury. So we'll see how it plays out. I don't have the slightest idea, but I would imagine the Vikings get some decent trade, assets back, and kind of form that full rebuild if this were to come to fruition.
So here's my thing with the Danielle Hunter, my issue, if you will. I'm all for players trying to make the most money possible. I can say that pretty much every episode that we do here. But the way that you go about it, I think, is important for your legacy. It's important for how fans view you, how the national media critiques you, etc. Like there's a significant difference between the way that Larry Fitzgerald has gotten raises over the years as opposed to Jalen Ramsey, right? The route is just different, right? The way that you fight to get your money is different. So what Danielle Hunter did early in his career is he took security over, basically the reverse of what Anthony Barr is doing right now. He took a deal early in his contract where he was treated as a top 15-ish player, ton of financial security. But then you get a couple years into it and you're like, wait, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Well, the reason why the Vikings wanted to do that is because they knew that. They looked 2 years at their progression. They looked at their coaching staff. They looked at development, timetables, and they expected to get a higher return on the field than they were going to be paying for the player. So the Vikings did this. His agent had to have known this. Danielle, as an athlete, I hope knew this, that he was going to be better in a couple years. So there's that. That kind of annoys me. Just as a fan, as an adult, I guess, it's like you made a decision for security. Now you want more money and security. Like, here's your cake. I guess you're gonna have to eat it too. Like it's annoying. Okay, so that's my one gripe. As far as everything else goes here, his timing could not be worse, could it? I mean, like you said, coming off a neck injury, that's big. I mean, Peyton Manning barely got back from that, and quickly declined after it. I mean, we've seen neck injuries stunt even the Peyton Manning is a great athlete in his own right, but we've seen superior physiques be stunted by neck injuries plenty of times. Cam Chancellor might be a great example of this. Plenty of other players as well have had issues coming back from this, especially at a position where you need to tackle, right? So there's that, and then there's also the fact that like dude, play the market. Like you've got a couple of years left in your deal here. Like wait till next year to do this song and dance, right? Like I don't understand why now. Like, are you looking at Aaron Donald and being like, oh, wow, he's making $20 million a year. I want that. It's like, I want that for you too. And you might deserve that type of money. I wholeheartedly believe that he's in the same league, the same stratosphere, whatever you will, with TJ Watt, et cetera, in terms of, pass rushing potency, if you will. He's that type of player. So should he ask for this money? Yeah. But like, dude, like, the market's down right now. Like, that we're like trying to just, teams are scraping together the most ridiculous deals of all time. I'm looking at the Taysom Hill deal, like just to find an extra penny so they can remain competitive. Like if you want the Vikings to compete
the Saints
next
are a
year,
one-off, but you
see my point? Like teams are doing weird stuff. Teams are doing weird stuff to get under the cap, and this dude's asking for more money when the Vikings just cleared 12 by moving mountains. He's probably asking for what, 8 million of that 12. So basically no free agent class, you get your draft class and you get a Danielle Hunter raise. That's what you could do this offseason if Danielle Hunter's demanding this. Like the timing just could not be worse. It's
right.
It's annoying.
So in that way, he in a way has leverage, like in a sense that like the Vikings don't have the timing kind of crunches the Vikings a little bit now because there are teams out there that have cap space. And if it is truly about the money, only about the money, which it is for a lot of athletes, and I'm not going to blame Danielle for being, in that category, but there are teams out there, that have the cap space there that would probably take a chance on somebody with the neck injury history and on a premier pass rusher defensive end at 21-ish, 24. I don't know how much it would actually be per year though. So it's, I mean, it would suck to lose a guy like that because at that point, like we've already talked about, you have to go full rebuild at that point, which is a tough thing to do when your quarterback's going to have a cap hit of $45 million in 2022. But there's, that's something I think the Vikings should address like immediately before even. The timing sucks too already because you got to plan your free agency, and that's how things got thrown haywire last year. With the Diggs thing, you got to figure that out first, and then attack free agency the way, the way you want to, based on which superstars you have, which blue chip players you can build around. And if you're going to plan for free agency, maybe their plan was to go get a pass rusher, complement Hunter on the other side. Do you even do that now?
That's a rumor.
If Hunter wants out. So you got to address this first, and you got to do it quickly. So, and maybe by the time people are listening to this, it's already been dealt with. I don't know, but
so that's
something I would do first.
There are two ways that you can do this, right? There's two options, and there's the simple one is obviously get rid of them or keep them. Those are your two, overarching categories. But the two ways that I see is basically you do the Anthony Barr thing with Danielle Hunter. You trim off, just get rid of the deal, void the entire thing, and just give him a 1-year, $19 million deal or something like that. That way you save yourself cap space, then you set him up for the opportunity to prove that he's healthy. You're already you're already getting a raise. I'm giving you an opportunity to get a raise, and then next year prove you're healthy, prove you're the same player, prove that you're on the same trajectory, and then I'll give you a 5-year, $100 and whatever $million deal. It's an opportunity there. So there's one route, right? I think the Vikings could financially swing that. I think that they have the innovation and kind of creativity on their staff with Rob Brzezinski to make something happen there. But I think that's the best route for Danielle Hunter. If it's about dollars and cents and keeping score, take a raise this year and then get a bigger one next year. That's, to me, is probably the best opportunity for him. For the Vikings, and for those I'm kind of like dipping my toes in the rebuild. Like I kind of want it, but at the same time, like I want to compete. So like I'm,
Yeah,
I'm in fan mode, right?
Jumping in and endorsing a full rebuild is not an easy thing for fans to do, especially the Vikings, who their ownership, their coaching staff, every single year it's about being relevant more
Right.
so than the proper
Right.
process of building a contender. It's all about being relevant, which is again that all is about Kirk Cousins and how they've done that. But I get it because I'm kind of in that boat too.
So what do you need then? Because the other route being, of course, the Vikings aren't going to outright release this guy. They'll let him sit on his couch at home until they get an offer, right? If it's truly that's what it's about, that he's going to sit out, they're going to trade him. What do they get? Really hard to determine a market for this type of player.
It is.
I mean, we know what you can get for Yannick Ngakoue. It's a second and a fourth, conditional third, right? Similar passer or pass rusher, I should say, in terms of like younger player, not too much mileage, good track record, potential to improve, giving the right system, coaching, etc. So we have that, but you have to think that Hunter is probably like levels above Yannick Ngakoue in terms of trade.
He will
value.
certainly command more than Ngakoue.
So it'd be like a first rounder and then something like maybe a player.
Yeah.
It's
something along those lines. And that's the interesting part is we don't really know what the trade market would be here for Danielle Hunter. It
would set a new precedent as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it's like, again, with the neck thing and the fact that the cap is limited this year, and there's just like, I think the Vikings would be at a disadvantage there in that sense too with the trade market. So it is the timing sucks. Yeah, I think you're right, and I think it does suck in a way for both sides to get what they want out of this. So
I don't think. Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't know how it's going to play out. I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised by anything at this point. After what kind of happened with Diggs, how that all played out. Not that Hunter and Diggs are the same. I think there was certainly different ways to go about it, and they both went different ways about it, kind of explaining that they want more money, and they didn't really want the same things either. Diggs wanted out of town, Hunter wants more money, and that's not the same thing. So, but interesting. That's certainly the one to keep an eye on because, again, like you said, Hunter is probably the most valuable Viking, not at quarterback for sure. So
he is your queen piece on your chessboard, right?
Yeah.
If where he moves is where everyone else is moving right with him, right? And it makes it difficult even from our perspective because it's like, why are we even discussing some of this stuff if this player moves, right? Like it literally, like if Hunter's gone, and let's say you get a first, a fourth, and throwaway defensive end, a guy that just basically replaces him on the field, something like that, right? What do you actually have at this point, right? Like you don't know what you have in the nose tackle that we're all very excited about.
You have a team that needs to rebuild, and at that point, then you trade Harrison Smith, and you rebuild at that point.
And that's another thing we haven't even mentioned is that they're currently trying to restructure / extend Harrison Smith in order to free up more cap space by transitioning the signing bonus over to. Cap money to a signing bonus and moving years onto it and then spreading the payments out. I don't know anything about this stuff, but that's what's happening. That's what's happening. So it's like all of a sudden, like Harrison Smith's talks now hinge on Danielle Hunter's not even request because we haven't seen anything other than just sources. There's no been and Danielle Hunter liking tweets. Like that's not a formal trade request. Although it might be in today's society, I don't know. But my point being here is that like everything you do hinges on that one move.
It's like the Vikings should be completely altering or have another plan ready in the event that like for Plan A, keep Hunter on this team, right? Plan B, Hunter's gone, trade him, we start over. Like there should be that, and I'm hoping the Vikings front office is thinking that right now because I think you go two separate ways completely here. If hinging on what Hunter ends up doing if he's on your football team or not.
Yeah. All right. So we've covered Anthony Barr. We've covered Danielle Hunter. We've basically covered Harrison Smith, so we can pass over that one. With the time remaining, I'm not going to spend any more time on the specialist. Dan Bailey, we knew that he needed to be gone, right? But that's also setting us up for my favorite moment in the Vikings drafting a kicker in the 5th round. So we'll talk about that when we get there. All right. So the last couple pieces that we have are Anthony Harris, rumors circulating that he's probably just about gone. Like that, I'm kind of waiting for that update right now, to be honest with you, as we do this show. And we've got Kyle Rudolph officially gone. Irv Smith moves into the prominent role. We've kind of already discussed that as well. And then just a bunch of rumors and just ideas that are circulating around. So where do you want to go from here?
We can do the Kyle Rudolph thing. I just want to say, like, dude is a pro's pro. Like, I know that's sort of the cliche, like, oh, he was great for the community, blah blah blah. But like, I don't know, the Players Tribune letter was a nice touch to me,
right?
To the fans that for as reckless and as perhaps frustrating as it was for a lot of Vikings fans down the stretch, that he wasn't used very much, and B, it seemed like the contract maybe was over, was not quite equaling the value of what he was throwing on the field. A lot of that, again, is usage, but the guy was awesome to have in and around the community of Minnesota and Minneapolis for 10 years. And it sounds like, based on what he was saying in the letter, he'll be back around once he's, if he's not playing football for another team. So that's cool to see. So that's all I wanted to say on Rudolph. And I think Irv Smith is also poised for a breakout year next year, with that said. So that's all I had. Otherwise, some of these free agency names are intriguing to look at here.
So I'll co-sign everything you said about Kyle Rudolph, everything that he did at the Children's Hospital and stuff. Super nice guy. Never was a big leaguer. Like, he wasn't that type of athlete, that would, like, if you went up to him and said, "Hey, Kyle, can I get an interview?" Like, if he had time, he would give you an interview. He was a nice guy. It didn't matter who you were, where you represent, whatever. So that sucks to see him go just on a personal level. I mean, 10 years is a long time. I mean, he's basically attached to my young adulthood, right? And he's now gone and moving on. I think it's best for both sides, but we've discussed all of that. I mean, I hope he signs a huge deal somewhere and he's an effective, presence as a receiver once again, and someone's not tying him down to just blocking all the time, because I still think that he has at least a couple years left in that regard. So that being said, let's talk about some of these rumors, because where the Vikings are going, yes, it does hinge on Danielle Hunter, and the amount of money you spend places does matter, whether he's on the roster or not. But let's just assume that he is on the roster. Let's assume, be optimistic in a really pessimistic world. Some of these names out here are super interesting. I mentioned Shaquille Griffin earlier. There's also been William Jackson reported that the Vikings are interested. I don't think they even have anywhere close to the cash to be, truly interested in that conversation. But the fact that his name's being floated is one thing. You've got Joe Thuney, who I know that everyone in the Twitter will literally break in Minnesota if the Vikings are able to sign him. But again, didn't seem realistic. We had a whole conversation about that.
He's out to Kansas City, 5 for $80 million.
Is that official? Okay. So He's officially off the board. The Vikings were, quote, in talks to try to get Joe Thuney. That's not going to happen. We kind of figured that was going to be the case. I've seen Geno Atkins' name thrown around, which is cool because he's the 3 technique when Mike Zimmer was in Cincinnati.
Lawson.
I've seen Shaq Lawson. Yeah, I mean, there's been a ton of different names thrown around, both on the grand scale and kind of the lower, kind of quiet moves, right? So here's gonna be my question. This is how we're going to cover this. Who is your favorite rumor that you've seen on a grand scale? So think like a top shelf free agent, a guy that the Vikings have to shell 67% or so of their remaining salary cap space to, and then also one kind of mediocre, moderate signing that you think has the potential to improve the roster, kind of greater than the value. I call it a value pick, right? Give me one of each.
I'll go Shaq Griffin. I think he'd be a really, really good addition to the Vikings defense, and I think it's needed too at quarterback. It's a lot of youth right now, and I think we saw growth, but with it growing pains last year, and there is, again, so much youth there. Griffin, and not that Griffin's an old man by any means, but a little bit more experience there, and some kind of something that Mike Zimmer can work with and kind of build off of and coach up a little bit, and so just something for the Dantzlers and the Jeff Gladney, those guys to kind of work around, especially with the injuries last year. It was just brutal. So I'm in on Griffin if they're able to get him something reasonable. So, and then after that, I don't really have any other in terms of the offensive line, right? I'll say this: you sign free agents for need, you draft for value, and so basically, don't overpay in free agency, but get guys that are cheap at those positions that you need, and just kind of get a serviceable uh, guard, get a serviceable pass rusher or two in there for depth at the very least. So that's all I really have. I like Griffin a lot. Lawson, if they can get him, would be sort of my number 2 choice
Right.
to get as a sort of a big name free agent. But don't overspend on a guard. I'm kind of glad they didn't get Tooney out of that for what
Mhm.
5 for 80. Like that's not. I'm not okay with that. And I think the Chiefs are gonna regret that one. But yeah, that's all I have. Just play it by position. Get the guy that you want to get at. One of those top guys. If your top guy's Griffin, if you got top guys Lawson. After that, and Spielman's been awesome about this, getting guys that aren't quite top tier, but address the need and provide the service that you expect them to at that spot. He's been great about that. Continue to do that, I guess, is my only thought. Otherwise, I mean, this whole different. It's the free agency period is different than it has been. So I don't really have anything. I don't even know what they could even do after that.
So I think I'm with you. I think Shaq Griffin is the top guy here. Like if you're gonna shell out cash, that's the guy to do it with. I think he fits your system. I think he literally looks just like Xavier Rhodes, right? Like in terms of physique, in terms of kind of his talent, his ability. I think he fits super well. So that would be mine as well. It's Carl Lawson, not Shaq Lawson. That's what I said before.
Jack Griffin and Carl Lawson.
Yeah. Right. Carl Lawson, also a nice player. I am going to take the value option here, though. If you've seen these reports about Trey Hendrickson, the kind of
See, I don't like.
he's interesting.
I think he's going to get a lot of money. I think he's going to get a lot of money.
I think he might too, because there's a bidding war, and I think all 4 or 5 of the teams, the Saints being one and the Jets being the other heavily favored one, I think that they all thought they were going to get him for a bargain, and now everyone wants him, and all of a sudden
I think he's going to get a lot of money. Like he's going to get. He's going to get mid-teens million a year. I think it's going to be a lot. I think.
Okay, so assuming that we can keep it low here, I really like that pickup. I think that he fits super nicely in just like a pass rusher kind of like hybrid, move this guy around and do all kinds of crazy stuff with.
Yeah. Oh, I love the idea. I just don't
Right.
think. I don't know. Maybe I'm overestimating what his value will be, but I think teams they see a lot of untapped potential there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then the other one for me was Keelan Cole, who I mentioned before, comes from Jacksonville. You got the connection there with McCardell.
Sure.
And also a nice wide receiver 3. I mean, I think he's shown wide receiver 2 potential. It fits super nicely in that mold with, Adam Thielen kind of, if Adam Thielen theoretically is kind of regressing, Keelan Cole's in theory getting better. That's a nice trio of receivers to kind of to move around and gives you more flexibility when you go to make a draft pick this year too. So those are some names that I'm watching. I think Austin Blythe is the other one that people have thrown around. A guard, much cheaper guard than Joe Tooney. Still going to cost you a pretty penny, but much cheaper. And of course, with what the Vikings have done with Riley Reeve, you don't really have a choice. You got to sign someone. Unless you want to start, Brian O'Neill at right tackle, keep him being really the only fortifying piece there. Ezra Cleveland having a new position. And then I guess you have the center as well. It's been there for 2 years. Then have 2 rookie guards. I don't think that works out. So you got to sign someone. I think Austin Blythe is a good name to keep an eye on as well as things continue to develop here. But yeah, that's kind of where we stand right now. I think we covered just about everything the Vikings have done over the last 10 days or so here. Is there anything that we're missing? Did I forget to touch on something that I'm going to regret later?
Not really, because all of your big name offensive line or interior offensive linemen that you would hope the Vikings maybe go after are really kind of off the board already. You talk about Tooney, Lindsley, Zeitler, Elflein is, I guess, Vikings didn't really want him back, but he's picked up already. Cam Irving's picked up already, so. It's getting to the point now where you almost have to just kind of roll with whoever you can get in at a $3 to $5 million deal or something like that. But otherwise, again, do not overpay for somebody. Is what I would encourage the Vikings to do. And number one, handle Danielle Hunter. Do that first before you kind of figure out what the rest of your your offseason plan is going to be.
So we'll finish with this then. Fun question. Kyle Rudolph, like we said, he's gone. He's going to try to sign somewhere else. I think he's probably going to get a nice deal. Where do you think makes the best fit for Kyle Rudolph on his next team? Where would you like to see him land?
That's an interesting one. I
Johnny
want
Smith
him
just went to New England, so we unfortunately both of us can't use the Patriots in this situation.
right. I want him to go to a winner as much as possible. And with that said, like I think Kansas City would be fun. I don't know how much money you can make there, but that or I don't want to say Tampa Bay because they probably have too many tight ends already.
Right.
But somewhere where he can win, I think he deserves a Super Bowl. So somewhere where he will have the chance to contend. I mean, Seattle obviously jumps to mind.
That's what I thought too,
with the connection with the Vikings and Seattle always.
And they need a tight end too.
And they do, and they could use a tight end. So that's another one as well. But there's, I just don't want him to go to some, New York Jets or somebody like that that's going to go 4-12 and he's going to catch 3 touchdowns. I'd like him to be involved in a part of a winning team.
What about like the Chargers, who were let go of Hunter Henry? Justin Herbert's going to need something, and I think they're on their up and up. I don't think that they're a Super Bowl contender for another 2-3 years, but with the right direction, I mean, he could be a He could be a nice.
And we don't know what he wants either. I mean, it's possible that I'm
thinking about
wants to
what
be.
I want for Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah.
And what I want is like a 4-year, $20 million deal with Los Angeles.
I want like a 2-year deal on a contender where he doesn't have to be the number one tight end. That too. But I want him to win a title. It'd be cool to cheer for him in a deep playoff game somewhere. So that's kind of what I want selfishly. But again, maybe he wants to go.
Kelce would be nice too.
Right. Maybe he wants to fill some stats. Next year or the year after. So maybe that's what he's looking for too. I guess we'll find out.
Absolutely. All right. So that wraps up our show today with kind of the madness as it emerges with open tampering beginning in free agency this Monday afternoon. We'll be back next week to discuss further developments. I hope and I think a lot of the things that we discussed today, the questions that we posed and kind of the answers that we need will be answered by the next time we speak with you all. So looking forward to watching all that develop. Thank you as always for listening to us. We appreciate it. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcast. You can also watch us on YouTube if you prefer that method of podcasting. Make sure to check out the rest of the Climbing the Pocket team. ClimbingThePocketNetwork.com is where to find that. And I know that there's a couple live shows that are going on throughout the week. The rest of the guys here are doing a great job of providing, a space for everyone to get in on the conversation. So make sure you're joining in on that stuff. But with that said, I appreciate you guys. It's been fun, and we will be back next week to discuss this further.